Guys, welcome to the J. Scott Outdoors podcast. Today is the 19th of November, and here in Arizona, the 13A strip hunt has already been completed. The 13B hunt, they're right in the middle of that hunt. Opening day was this last Friday. Today is Monday, so they've been hunting for several days. There are some mid-November Coues deer hunts going on. There's early December Coues deer hunts coming up. The late December Coues deer is coming up. We've got some Rocky Mountain bighorn sheep hunts are going on right now. The bulk of the sheep hunts in Arizona are kicking off here December 1st. I'm back in Arizona from Colorado. I'm done with my duties at the Odd Six Ranch for now. Colorado just finished their fourth season, and we had some hunters in on the ranch. Some owners of or some friends of the owners shot some management bulls. I'm back here in Arizona. I went and collected my trail cameras out in Western Arizona. Spent 2 days getting my cameras. Got some really cool pics of a lion that the Game and Fish knows well. I guess his nickname or what he's known by is KM14. He's been known to travel multiple mountain ranges down in southwestern Arizona. And he was on 3 of the different drinkers. One of the drinkers, I got up to check the camera, and I noticed a pile of mule deer bones, kind of some hide and a little bit of meat still left on, and thought, man, that would be unbelievable if I wasn't 100% sure if it was a lion or if maybe coyotes had gotten to it, but wasn't much left of it. And anyway, got the camera, pulled the card, and there's over 100 photos of the lion. He crawls up in the tree right next to my cameras looking around, but he kills a deer just out of camera view and drags the deer right into the middle of the view. It's on my Instagram, J. Scott Outdoors on Instagram. Anyway, proceeds to eat on it for about 6 or 7 days. And then hasn't been back since. Interestingly, he had been on 2 of the other cameras, and pretty much we had photos of him from, I want to say, around the 26th, roughly mid-August to mid to late September. He covered a pretty good range there in the New Water Mountains, but pretty neat to see a tom lion. Pretty alarming though to have a lion roaming around in sheep country. I know the Kofa herd had a major lion problem and killed off, I want to say, like 70% of the sheep in the Kofas, and they got a handle on that, and the sheep have really rebounded. But this tom lion is still prowling around. So for the sheep's sake, we've got a ton of lions in the state, and I'd like to see the sheep thrive. And if we can keep the lions out of the sheep units, that would be good. So. Let's see, where did I get off track? Sheep hunts kicking off all over the state. We're doing our scouting, looking forward to the hunt starting December 1st. And I thought on this episode, I've gotten a lot of questions in, a bunch of questions. I like to do question and answer on Instagram, but I figured I'd go through a bunch of the questions because I know there's podcast listeners that aren't on Instagram as well. So let's cover some ground. I want to encourage you guys, if you do have any questions of me, you can reach me at jscottoutdoors@gmail.com. You can also go on my Instagram account at jscottoutdoors. Send me a direct message. You can follow along on my Instagram account. I'm a couple times a week doing a question and answer session. I try to answer every single question that comes in. So, and all of this wouldn't be possible without the sponsorship of my great sponsors. We've got GoHunt.com, the gear shop, the optics department. My friend Cody Nelson's the optics manager there. We've got Kuyu.com. We've got phonescope.com. We've got CanyonCoolers.com, and a new addition of sponsorship is OnyxMaps.com. And midway through the show, I'm going to give you the promo codes for those companies where you can save money. You can also click on the show notes of this podcast and see the different promo codes. So it's basically JScott18 with most of the companies, and that's going to save you anywhere from 10 to 20% when purchasing. And I appreciate you guys supporting those sponsors. I appreciate you guys, each and every one of you. I really like the feedback. I really like the question and answer. I'm always happy to answer questions in regards to hunting, fishing, business, podcast, guests, whatever you guys want to talk about. I try and be as transparent as possible. So let's dive into some of these questions. Says Jay, tips for glassing late season elks, slow like deer or faster and looking at the same spot multiple times. So late season elk, my answer was pretty fast because elk shine that time of year. Make sure to glass thick hillsides on north and northeast, northwest slopes. They live in a pretty tight circle. So for you guys that have late season elk hunts that are either underway with some of these Arizona archery hunts, or for you late season Arizona elk hunters, one thing you need to know is these elk, after the rut, they try and go in the nastiest, thickest, most remote parts of these units. They do not like to be disturbed. They typically bachelor up, kind of like they are in the velvet time, although they're hanging in country where they have easy access to feed, and usually it's on the north-facing slopes and the thickest slopes. You get those manzanita hillsides, you get those mahogany hillsides where they can come out and eat grass, and where they can graze on grass, and where they can feed on the forbs and feed on the different bushes and such as well. They like cover and they like shade, so they're trying to lick their wounds after the rut, so they're going to be on those thick hillsides. For you hunters, say in your 6As, your 6Bs, your Unit 8s, Unit 22, 23, some of those units, you have the luxury a little bit of glassing across some of those canyons and finding those thick, brushy hillsides that give them the most shade. And if you focus on north and northeast facing slopes, you're going to find more bulls. The challenge with the hunt on a year like this with antler growth that is not as good, as you're going to have a lot of broken bulls because you've got broken or more brittle antlers, and you're going to have, our antler growth was not as good, so even a bull that's not broke up is probably not going to be at its maximum potential. But one of the good things, if you do find a group of bulls, typically they're not going to move a whole lot during the day. It's very common for them to kind of stay in about 100-yard circle and feed and bed, and that's their routine this time of year. So if people haven't jostled them around and kicked them around, and you're scouting some bulls, or if you're headed out to go scout, you definitely want to find those groups of bulls, and then you want to stay away from them, and you want to keep your eye on them, and then you want to figure out how you can get into a quote unquote sniper position to shoot across. A lot of these late season elk hunts are pretty long shots, but if you're seeing cows and calves, you probably need to move into a little bit more rugged type country. And I'm sure we'll get some more questions on elk here in a minute. Let's go to the next question. Favorite skinning knife you've used? Is the Benchmade Altitude worth the money? I've never used a Benchmade knife. I've been liking the new Silverware IBK, which is interchangeable blade knife. And Jeff Rowley, who I've had on this podcast, actually is the owner of the company Silverware, and on Instagram it's at Silverware. That's Civilware. And I really like Jeff Rowley. He is actually a professional skateboarder. He is known for taking the company Vans, as in, Vans like the skateboarding shoes, which are now mainstream. I mean, every people that don't even skateboard wear Vans. But Jeff is known for taking the company Vans and turning that company around and really making that a mainstream brand. And he's a professional skateboarder. He does skateboard. He's a skateboard commentator. He's one of the most respected skateboarders. He's from originally Great Britain. I've had him on the podcast. He's a huge hunter. He hunts with Jake Franklin out in California. And they hunt sheep and deer and bear and all sorts of stuff. But he also loves dry ground lion hunting and is hunted with friends of the podcast that I've had on before as well, Andy Knowlton. And Jeff, anyway, is just a great guy. And he's got a knife that I carry all the time on my belt. All the time, whether I'm at the Odd Six Ranch or just every single day, is a folding knife that's a silverware folding knife, and it just comes in real handy. But this season, I've been using that IBK, which is an interchangeable blade. It's just like the Havlon knife, but the handle, if you will, is a lot more sturdy. It's a lot more, I guess, ergonomic to your hand. It's a lot more solid knife. I've used a Havlon for years, and they're real super lightweight, and they tend to break and what have you. I really like this IBK because you can take the same Havlon type blades, but it's easier to put them on and take them off. Whereas the Havlon, sometimes you have to have a little, you can't just do it with your fingers. You have to have a needle nose pliers or something, or a Leatherman to get the blades on and off. The IBK is seems like they stay on better, but they're easier to get on and off. So I've been using that blade, and then as well the Kestrel knives. Nathan Creech, who is also a big Kuyu supporter out of California. Kestrel knives. That's at Kestrel. That's KESTREL knives. That's on Instagram. I think it's also kestrelknives.com. But his little mountain caper is a fixed blade knife that I really like. It's real lightweight. It's a sweet little knife, and I've used it quite a bit. So those are the two knives I use. It says, "Hi Jay, I just drew a Javelina tag in Unit 22. Never hunted Javelina before. Any tips?" My tips for Javelina: I am not a big Javelina hunter, but I see them obviously all the time when I'm glassing for Coues deer. They're a perfect spot and stock animal. Javelina is also a perfect animal for someone that's just getting into hunting. Javelina is a perfect animal for kids and getting families out hunting. A lot of the seasons we have them, I believe, in November. We also have seasons that run in archery seasons in January, and some they call them ham hunts, handgun archery or muzzleloader hunts that run in kind of the early part of February, and then there's the general season, which is a rifle hunt. But Javelina are pretty widespread throughout Arizona. In the northern units, the central units, the southern Arizona units, we pretty much have Javelina everywhere. One tip I would give is, if you find prickly pear, if you have prickly pear type habitat, you're probably going to find Javelina. Although they can be as high as 7,000, 7,000 feet. I know they're starting to get really thick up on the Boquillas Ranch in Unit 10. I know in Unit 9 they're getting thick. Unit 8, so they're really kind of all over. But in a general rule of thumb, if you find prickly pear vegetation, you're going to find Javelina. And a tip would be, they're a great animal to glass, and if you can get any elevation at all looking over, say, a prickly pear flat or some prickly pear ridges, more than likely you're going to find Javelina. Now, the interesting thing about Javelina is they're not early risers typically when it's in these cooler months. They're an animal that you can glass all day. They typically are not like a bed down type animal like a deer is, where you've got your prime time hours from, sun up and sun down. Javelina is pretty much an animal that you can glass up feeding in herds and groups all day long. It's kind of rare to see a lone javelina. Normally you're seeing, big family groups of, anywhere from say 7 or 8 to, 15 or 20 in a group. A lot of times in the morning, once the sun has kind of come up at kind of that 8 o'clock time frame when, it's been pretty cold and it starts to warm. If you first look at the hillsides that are the sunny hillsides, if you glass those hillsides first, typically you're going to find groups of javelina. I recommend glassing off of a tripod, so a good pair of binoculars. You don't need a spotting scope, but a good pair of binoculars mounted on a tripod, glassing into prickly pear type country, more deserty type country, and glassing the sunny hillsides. You can typically find javelina, and they love prickly pear. So you find prickly pear and you look for long enough period of time, you're going to end up finding them. They're not too hard to spot, and usually when you spot one, there's multiple. And then from there, they don't see very well at all. You can stock up on them. I mean, they can hear well, but their biggest thing is you've got to definitely get the wind right. Their nose is everything. If they smell you, they're gone. Hopefully that helps. Unit 9, late rifle strategy and tactics and general locations. This is a question that's come in. Some tips are, I'm not going to give specific locations because I don't like to do that. I would find any height advantage you can in Unit 9. One of the challenges with Unit 9 is, compared to a lot of other units, it's fairly flat, it's really thick, and you need to use your vantage points to your advantage, if that makes sense. It's going to be tough. You need to prepare for a tough year. Antler growth up in Unit 9 was, some of the 350 plus bulls, 350 to say 400 inch bulls, lost 25, 30 inches this year. So prepare for antler growth not being as good. And like I said before, elk are going to bed not necessarily on north or northeast facing slopes in Unit 9. It's a lot flatter, so they're going to seek out the thickest juniper thickets that they can find. So if you use your advantage of height and find contour lines, whether it be ridges or little knobs or mountaintops, you want to be looking, back up. If you look on Google Earth, you can find some of those real thick juniper thickets, and you can almost bet that the elk are going to be in those thick areas of juniper. And then so your goal is to pick out the surrounding peripheral areas of those real thick juniper thickets, and they'll be coming out of those because there's not much not much feed or vegetation for them to browse on. In those thickets, they'll have to come out into some of those more open parks, those sagebrush parks, those grassy parks to feed. So first light in the morning, you need to be up on your glassing point, not in gray light. You need to be waiting for it to get light and sitting there and trying to pick apart on the edges of those thick junipers and find where those bulls are using to feed. And then if you have to, leapfrog, get a couple knobs closer, or if you have to sit on the edge of a field or an opening and know that they fed in there most of the times that night, if you get your wind right, they're going to feed right out in the same spot. So hopefully that helps. Unit 33 archery bear tag. I drew them May through July. Do you have any tips? Gotta be honest, I have not hunted Unit 33 for spring bear and haven't hunted spring bear myself at all. I've seen quite a few bears. One thing, I don't have a lot of experience, but one thing with that hunt that I would tell you is find your good water sources. Find your springs, find your dirt tanks, find your windmills, find any place where these bears are going to get water. Check those waters for tracks. potentially set up some trail cameras on those springs and what have you. And then I'm a glasser, so I would just find vantage points and get up and glass off your tripod until you find where those bears are at. And then it's a true spot and stock hunt. Question, would you say a 90-inch buck is doable in 36C mid-November? How many bucks a day should you see? I would say, yeah, a 90-inch buck is doable in mid-November. The one thing in 36C, the one thing you have to understand is that there's already been an October hunt, and the bucks have already been jostled. A lot of guys that kill these really big bucks that I've had on the podcast, like Jake Lindsay, Coues OCD, Eric Forrest, a bunch of the Arizona Ground Pounders, Dwayne Adams, a bunch of these guys, and there's a bunch more I'm leaving out, but they like that October hunt because they can scout all summer, they can pattern those bucks, and then they get first shot at them. You guys that have the mid-November Coues deer hunts or even these early December Coues deer hunts, the units have had quite a bit of pressure. They've had people moving around. One thing I would say is try and get away from the roads, try and get in some of those areas where people are not getting into. And then again, kind of like the late elk hunt, Coues deer after about 9 o'clock in the morning, they are going to seek shade. So they are going to be on those north, northeast, northwest facing slopes where they have the most shade. So if you look at your Google Earth and say your Onyx Maps and use the aerial portion and you look for the areas that are going to be after, say, 10, 11 o'clock in the shade, and certainly the afternoon shade. So you're going to want to be in the morning using the sun to your advantage, but then shifting it, as soon as it starts to warm up, you're going to want to shift and start looking into the shady pockets, and you'll start finding more bucks if you focus on shade. Let's see what else I have here. Yeah, you got to get out and scout, and you got to hunt the whole hunt and get away from the roads and hike a bunch, and put some effort into it. And a 90-inch buck is doable. I would say that you should probably see around 5, 6, 7 bucks a day, and maybe more than that. And if you're seeing, again, like the cows and calves, if you're just seeing does and fawns, you need to move country, whether that be down in a lower elevation or up in a higher elevation, or most of the time I would just say in a little bit rougher, a little more rocky type vegetation. Okay, question. I've got a late season cow elk hunt coming up. Any tips? I'm going to tell you that I don't have a ton of experience hunting cows. Obviously, I've hunted elk a lot, but never really focused on cows. I would use the same strategy on cow elk as I would on pretty much anything. Gain elevation, use your vantage points, and like Dwayne Adams says on the podcast before, the angle of the dangle, which is where a lip or the end of a point just drops enough to give you a broad vantage point where you can see a lot of country. And then it comes down to just glassing your brains out, on a tripod with a great pair of binoculars. And cow elk are going to be fairly easy to find, and they're going to be fairly easy to, get within 300 or 400 yards and get in a sniper position and be able to take a shot. One thing I would consider is, they're not going to be in as near as rough a country as, say, the bulls will be during the late season. But just get up and glass them up. Hopefully that helps. Question comes in about one of the sponsors, Onyx Maps, Onyx Hunt. You can go to onyxmaps.com. If you use the JScott18 promo code, you're going to get a 20% discount there at Onyx. But the question comes in, how do I check between private and public land on Onyx Map? And my answer is it's a simple click of a button by turning the layer on or off. There's a private public land layer that basically if you click it, it's going to show you the ownership. It's going to show you whether it's BLM, whether it's federal land, whether it's forest, whether it's state. If it's private land, it's not only going to show the borders of the private, it is going to show the name of the owner. So, it'll say like Double Adobe Ranch or, John Smith, and it'll actually give the owner of the property. You can click on that property and it will give you the size of the property, but all of the borders of the property are delineated by an orange line as well. For instance, on the Onyx, like the BLM portion of land is usually in yellow. Usually the state pieces are in blue. The forest pieces are sometimes in blue as well. It also shows you wilderness. It shows you, it's pretty cool. Onyx has a topo, it has an aerial, and then it has a hybrid version. So you can kind of click on the hybrid, which is what I like a lot, where you've got the aerial view, plus it shows contour lines, plus it shows ownership. And then there's also layers that show old prescribed burns, show wildfires, and as you know, as a hunter, a lot of game likes to seek areas that have been burned. So not only will it tell you, it'll show it right on the aerial map, right on your phone or your computer screen. It will show those areas of burn, and you can kind of focus sometimes your pre-scouting according to those burns. I had a listener the other day send me his hunt plan for one of the units in northern Arizona for the late elk hunt, and he's going to be focusing on 5 or 6 of the latest burns. And one of the cool things is it shows the date of the burn as well. So you can tell new burns from old burns. And where that is significant is, sometimes those new burns that are, a year, 2, 3 years old, they've done a lot of replanting, a lot of re-vegging, and that those forbs and that browse and the grass and such is tender, and maybe a little better than some of the old burns that are, say, 10 years old or so. So use the JScott 18 promo code. You're going to save a 20% discount. You will find that Onyx is very easy to use. We've got a question. Arizona Unit 22 Archery Deer Advice and Tactics. Number 1, I'd get away from the roads. We've talked about that already. I would glass from a high point down on the valley floor. Now, I think that's important. He's talking about Arizona Unit 22 deer advice. Mule deer are going to be on a lower level, so you're going to want to get up high and glass down, but it's a good general rule of thumb for Coues deer as well. I like to hike up high and glass across or glass down. Use the contour lines to your advantage as your vantage points. Don't stop glassing all day, especially if you're talking about the Unit 22 archery deer, the OTC coming up here in January. You're talking about December and January timeframe where these deer could be rutting. They're on their feet a lot, so sometimes some of the best glassing is right during the middle of the day. And then again, like we've talked about, glass into the shade in the afternoon and the evenings. I see a lot of guys, they put in the afternoon, they'll put the sun at their back so that when they're looking through their binos, it's bright. And yes, if you did see a deer in the sun, it's gonna shine. But most of the deer, even mule deer or Coues deer, they're going to be on the shady sides of the hills. So you need to glass in the afternoon looking into the sun. And guys, I don't like looking into the glare. But you don't understand. If you look into the shade in the afternoon, you are looking where the deer are. Just like if it's super windy and you're looking on the windy side of the hill, you might find a deer or two. But if you look on the lee side of the hill where it is calm, you're going to be able to pick up way more deer because you're looking on the percentage side where most of the deer are hanging. Hopefully that helps. Largest sheep population in the Beartooth, Montana, 300, 303, 500, 501, 502. I answer the question. I haven't the slightest clue. I can't spell Montana. I do love Montana, though. I love it for fishing and for hunting. I was able to go up to Montana by Bozeman and hunt with the Kuyu guys a couple years, and it was just a phenomenal place. But I would consult Go Hunt Insider, GoHunt.com Insider. And Go Hunt Insider was a title sponsor of my podcast for a long time. Go Hunt has kind of shifted that sponsorship to the gear shop or the optics department. with Cody Nelson being the manager there, a friend of mine for over 20 years. But I still promote the Go Hunt Insider. It's the best Western hunting resource tool there is. And if you go to gohunt.com/jscott, you're going to get actually a $50 Go Hunt Gear Shop gift card when you sign up. So just becoming an insider member, you get a $50 Go Hunt Gear Shop gift card, and you can use that in the gear shop. But if you're wanting to research harvest statistics, harvest data, population data, if you're wanting to get strategy articles on how to apply for Montana as well as the different western states, definitely recommend going to Go Hunt Insider and checking that out. It's the best western hunting resource there is out there. Got a question. Can I get away with my Icon Pro 5200? So that's an Icon Pro Kuyu Icon Pro 5200 for a 10-day sheep hunt, or should I get the 7200 bag? I would say you could get away with the 5200, but you're really going to be pushing it. And for not a lot of added extra weight, barely anything at all, I would much rather see you go into the field with a 7200 cubic inch Icon Pro from Kuyu and have room to bring all your stuff. I just don't see the need on a hunt like that to not go ahead and get the 7200 bag and feel like you can take enough ample gear. So I would definitely go with the 7200. Guys, I also want to remind you before we get to the next question that we do have one spot left. Dar Colburn is taking a group of 4 guys. Right now there's only 3 hunters down to kick off the Mexico Coues deer hunting season in Mexico. And that trip is December 28th through January 5th. And we're looking for one more person to go. So it'll be a group of 4. Dar and one of our guys that guides with us, Hunter Haynes, are taking this group of 4 guys down to a new ranch. Dar has really high hopes and expectations for the quality of bucks on this ranch. You guys are going to be the first hunters to hunt there, and there's only 3 that have signed up right now. We're looking for a 4th. If you guys have any want any further information, you can send me an email at jscottoutdoors@gmail.com. You can also send me a direct message on my Instagram account at jscottoutdoors. Got a question here. It says, hey Jay, is the Kuyu Super Down Pro too heavy to bow hunt in? ? And then it has ultra down jacket ? And the answer of both of those are made for sitting still. If you want an active jacket, I would go with the new Kenai Ultra. It has pit zips and 3D FX insulation. In other words, it breathes when moving. I also got another text question today on the same subject, wanting to know, one, the difference between the Super Down Pro and the Super Down Ultra. The Super Down Pro is going to have twice the amount of insulation, but both jackets are going to be made for not wearing as you hike up to your glassing point. They're going to be made for once you get to your glassing point, you put that jacket on while you're glassing. If you're looking for a jacket that you can wear when you're actively hiking or spot and stock hunting or still hunting, you're going to want to go with a synthetic insulation that breathes. The Kenai Ultra, the new Kenai Ultra, has pit zips, and it has that active. It's for active wear, so it's nice and warm, but it also breathes. You have pit zips, so it allows it to vent, but it's also great if you get up to your glassing point and you want to sit there for a while. So and the difference between the Super Down Pro and the Super Down Ultra, the Super Down Pro has twice the insulation. It is very, very warm. It's a little bit heavier, yes, but I absolutely, in Colorado at the Ot6 Ranch, I loved wearing the Super Down Pro jacket and pants. And on my on my Chugach Doll sheep hunt this year, I took the Super Down Pro pants and jacket, and it was awesome when it was spitting rain, spitting snow, windy, I would put the super down pants on, and then I'd put my Kenai, my Yukon rain pants over the top of the super down pro pants, and I was nice and toasty. So hopefully that helps. Question here. Best gear for Alaska moose hunt, late September, early October. My answer to this question is from someone who has not moose hunted. I, I'm going to give you my opinion, but take it for what it's worth. I have not moose hunted. I do know that late September, early October in Alaska is going to be cold. So I definitely go with the Kuyu Yukon rain gear, which is their heaviest duty rain gear. It's still very, very breathable and very lightweight. I would go with the Super Down Pro pant and jacket. So when you're stopping to call for a while or you're stopping to glass, you would have that. I would also possibly look into waders. I would ask your outfitter, if you're going to be hunting in very wetland type of terrain, in the creeks, in the rivers like those moose like to inhabit. So, find out if you need waders. But go back to if you're going to be moving quite a bit, that's where if you have the Kenai Ultra jacket with the synthetic insulation, that's where with the pit zips you're going to be able to move, but then if you stop to call, you're also going to be able to zip up and wait it out. But you can also have your Super Down Pro in your pack, and wear your Kenai Ultra, and then if it's cold enough, you're going to want to potentially double up with the Kenai Ultra and put the Super Down Pro over the top. So hopefully that helps. Obviously, you're going to layer either with your Peloton or your merino wool. Normally, if you're hunting in those wet conditions like Alaska, you're probably going to go with the Peloton. The Peloton's going to dry a lot faster than the merino wool. And I've been a huge fan of merino wool, but I'm slowly but surely kind of transitioning and morphing, as I call it, into really loving the Peloton, the synthetic material. So hopefully that helps you. Differences between the Kuyu Tiburon Attack. Let's see, Kuyu Tiburon, the Kuyu Attack, and the Kuyu Guide. Okay, so the Tiburon are my favorite warm season pant. They're super breathable. They have the Dodd Air technology where air flows through them very freely. I also, all summer, I'm actually right here in Arizona, I'm wearing the Tiburon shorts. I wear the Tiburon shorts. I have, I think, 5 or 6 different pair. I have Major Brown. I have the gunmetal color. I have several pair in Vias, several pair in Verdi 2.0. I wear the Kuyu shorts all summer long. The Tiburon shorts made by Kuyu all summer long, as well as any warm season hunts, whether it be archery elk hunting in Arizona or Colorado or turkey hunting. I am wearing the Tiburon pants. Even scouting for the Desert Bighorn the other day, it was like highs in the 73 to 75. I wore the Tiburon pants, and those are I really like those pants. The Attack pant is an awesome pant as well. It's a 4-way stretch pant. It's a smidge more durable than the Tiburon, it's probably Kuyu's #1 selling pant and has been for a long time. It's like I said, a little heavier duty than the Tiburon, but the Attack pant is a great pant. It's got cargo pockets, very comfortable 4-way stretch. And then my favorite pant for the cold weather would be the Guide pant, which it's got a fleece lining, it's got a 4-way stretch, and it's a lot warmer than the Attack pant. Now there's a handful of new pants that have come out that you're not mentioning here in this question, but there's the Axis pant, there's the Talus pant, and the Pro pant, with the Axis pant being the heaviest duty of all of those pants, and for the coldest temperatures, and they've actually Set it up where there's different material in different parts of the pant. So you've got areas where you need more durability, you've got areas where you need more breathability. Most all of the Kuyu pants come with side zips that allow ventilation on the sides. So when you're hiking, you can zip down and ventilate, and then when you stop to glass or stop to call or something, you can zip those pants back up. So go to Kuyu, Kuiu.com. And you can, there's actually a pant breakdown where you can look at all the differences, and they go through the weights, they go through all the different seasons, they go through the materials, and it's actually a real helpful tool on the Kuyu's website. That's Kuiu.com. Question here, Jay, what is the best pant for 20 to 40 degree hunting weather? For me, it's the guide pant. Any conditions under about 40 degrees, I pull out the guide pant. I love the guide pant. You should try them out. Best time of day to see deer movement during early rut. So best time of day to see deer movement during early rut. Now, I don't know whether he's talking about Coues deer or mule deer, but I'm going to say mornings and evenings are always best. But if you're getting early rut, and you've got hot does, those bucks will be, chasing them. They'll be running around at any time during the day. Remember to glass into those shade pockets. At first light, definitely you can look on the sunny side of the hills and such, but 8:30, 9 o'clock, as you feel your body warming, you can almost bet that those deer are going to be dropping over on the shady side of the hill. And that's a great tip for you. Here's a question. Is there any way to judge the bases on a ram? Tricks or tips? So my answer to that is anytime I'm going into a new unit or even a unit that I've hunted, I keep a statistical chart that I get every year, the harvest report from the Game and Fish, and I'm able to track the base measurements for the rams that are harvested, the age of the rams, the base of the rams, and the length of the rams. And then anytime I can, whether it's a ram that we harvested or another outfitter or a private individual, I try and gather as many photos as I can of rams that have come out of that specific unit. So on my phone, I keep a folder of, so-and-so's ram had 14 and 2/8 inch bases, had 36-inch left horn, 37.5-inch right horn. Even if I can get the other measurements of the horn, I put everything that I can. I put the date that it was harvested, the year it was harvested, and I try and keep as much statistical data as I can. For instance, I'm hunting in the new waters this year, so I've gone back since 2007 and gotten all of the base measurements for that unit that have been harvested, so that when I'm field judging or when I'm looking at a ram, I'm never going to want to give more than the average base measurement. So I take all those rams and then I get an average going. And let's say that there's, the average is 14 and 4/8 on bases, and maybe there's been one 15-inch ram, maybe there's, a bunch of, right around that 14.4, 14.5, 14.3. I'm never going to look at a ram and go, oh, that's got 16-inch bases. I use the baseline of if the average is 14 and 4/8, that's kind of what I'm going to use. Now, if I've got documentation of a bunch of rams in the unit and this one particular ram is considerably heavier than any other ram, maybe I'll give him 15 when looking at it. And then I also compare when I'm actually looking at the ram, or if I'm looking at a trail camera picture of the ram, I try and pull up on my phone the image that I've saved in my research that I've saved to try and say, hey, this is like so-and-so's ram, and I'm looking at through my spotting scope. Or if I take phone scope video, I'm looking at, through my phone scope, and I can compare the phone scope video to the pictures or the video on my phone and say, yeah, these bases look real similar. That's a huge tip that I can give you. I try not to reinvent the wheel. I try and use the statistical data that we've gotten or that we have access to and use that to your advantage. Also, You hear if there's not much space between the horns, that's a bigger bass. That's not always true. It can be a good rule of thumb. When you start talking about ear clearance and the tip of the ear, and does it touch the horn or is there distance there, that can also help you determine mass throughout the horn. There's so much that goes into it, but I'm a huge fan of not reinventing the wheel. I'm a huge fan of using the data that we have the access to and getting that general baseline of rams that have been harvested in the exact unit, and then trying to plug the numbers in from there. Now you may be looking at, let's say, his left horn, and you've got 6 photos of a left horn that's between 34 and 36, and the ram that you're currently looking at through your spotting scope looks way longer than any of the rams you have. Then maybe he's a 36.5, 37-inch ram. But if he's about the same size when he turns to the side and you get that perfect side-on look, and it looks just like the photos, then you can go, okay, so he's somewhere between that 34 and 36 range. Got a question here. Is the Kuyu Super Down Pro jacket warm enough for tree stand hunting in Kansas? I actually think it'd be ideal. I think the Super Down Pro jacket from Kuyu, both the jacket and pants, would be ideal. Now, I would not wear them from wherever you're walking to your tree stand. I would carry them in your pack, whether you're using a fanny pack or a backpack to take up into your tree stand. I would not wear them until you get to the stand, because they're not made really for active wear. They're made for sitting. Sitting a tree stand is exactly what they're made for, except really sitting and glassing on a hillside, but same principle. I would definitely think the Super Down Pro jacket and pants would be a great thing. I'd carry them in your pack, get in your tree stand, and then put your pants and jacket on, and you'll be nice and toasty. Jay, I noticed that GoHunt.com Insider was the title sponsor of your podcast. Did they move? Did they just move away from the title sponsor? What's going on? So GoHunt.com Insider has been the title sponsor of my podcast since it started. They have created a gear shop and an optics department that my friend Cody Nelson, who was the manager at the Outdoorsman's for 7 years here in Phoenix, has moved to the Go Hunt gear shop. He is the optics manager for GoHunt.com, and so GoHunt approached me and said that they would like to shift or transition their sponsorship from the GoHunt Insider, which they still want me to promote, to the GoHunt Gear Shop. So if you guys have any questions at all about optics, I just had him on a podcast. I believe it was episode number 505, either 504 or 505. We talked about all kinds of questions for optics and binos and spotting scopes and tripods and rifle scopes and what have you. If you have any questions at all, he will answer the phone himself. You can call 702-847-8747. That's extension 2. Or you can email him at optics@gohunt.com, or Cody, Cody, at gohunt.com, and he has promised me that he will take care of the J. Scott Outdoors podcast listeners. He'll give you guys a great deal, so give him a call. He's happy to chat and discuss. That's what he does all day long. He deals with customers and answering their questions and their needs in regards to binos and tripods and spotting scopes, and whether you use 10s or 8s or 15s, or he can talk to you about all the different brands and manufacturers, the pros and the cons, and very detailed, very personable. He takes each customer on a one-on-one basis, and gets their needs met, gets their questions answered, and he does a great job. And I call him the glassing guru. I call him the optics authority. Give Cody a call if you guys are seeking any optic advice. Let's see, I'll do one more question here and then we'll save the rest for another episode. Arizona Unit 29 super tall grass glassing technique, buck location this time of year. Okay, when the grass is tall, one tip I can give you is that if you're down below and you're looking up, it's going to be hard because the coues there aren't very tall, and a lot of times the grass covers these bucks up. So I like to, even more in tall grass situations, I like to get up as high as I can and look down, or at least across and down. But specifically, if you can get up and look down, the grass is not as much of a factor. And you'll probably find more deer if you're glassing down into long grass than looking up. A lot of times you just see their ear tips, maybe even just their rack. And when you're scanning and panning and looking around, it's hard to see a deer's body because the grass covers them up. Where are bucks this type of year? We've covered it. Definitely, sunny sides in the morning for the first hour, but then transition to looking into the shade pockets. I've gotten probably 25 or 30 different messages from listeners that have already tried those tactics out this year of glassing into the shade and finding more bucks in those shade pockets. And so I know it works. I've been using it for years. And hopefully any of these questions or any of these answers to these questions have helped you guys out. Guys, I want to thank you for your support of this podcast. I've got a bunch more questions. We'll do it on another episode. Keep them coming. I'm happy to answer them. I'll have some guests on as well, and we can do some joint answering. Always happy to help you guys. I want to thank the sponsors again. I want you guys to check out the sponsors in the show notes. Check out the different promo codes, like the phone scope. You get a 10% discount if you use the JScott18 promo code with Onyx Maps. If you use the JScott18 promo code, you're going to get a 20% discount. Canyon Coolers, if you use the JScott18 or JScott promo code, you're going to get a 10% discount. And then don't forget Cody Nelson at GoHunt.com Gear Shop. He does a phenomenal job. And then Kuyu, Kuiu.com. All of these are in the show notes. Guys, until next time, God bless. Keep sending the questions, and thank you for your support of this podcast.